Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and yesterday saw the reveal of another one of those songs where we've known the artist for quite a while, but then, well, we were teased about the title of the song more recently, but it wasn't until yesterday, unless you count yet another of the leaks, that we finally got to hear Australia's song for this year's Eurovision Song Contest. And for those who are just joining the contest, well, do people who are familiar with the contest, are they bored of explaining why Australia takes part? Because it really should just be household knowledge at this point. They're allowed to take part. I think no one's disputing that at this point. Anyway, the Australian delegation this year consists of Jessica Mauboy, who you might recognise from the second semi-final Interval Act of 2014, Australia's first technical appearance in Eurovision, except it was non-competitive, and also Australian artists have taken part for other countries before, but whatever. Anyway, the song for Jessica Mauboy this time is called We Got Love, sometimes credited as #WeGotLove, but I don't acknowledge that for a number of reasons that I'll get onto. Anyway, it's presented in English, and it was written and composed by the usual suspects, DNA Songs, which consists of Anthony Agizi and David Musumeci, plus of course Jessica Mauboy herself, because the Australians know how to get their artists involved with writing songs, or that seems to be the pattern anyway. So, first impressions then. Apparently this song was leaked to the public a while back, and the people who listened to it then reported back to me and said that it wasn't all that impressive. I don't know, I didn't listen to the leak, I always wait for the official release, because even though that gives me a disadvantage in terms of how long it takes for me to write these reviews, I just prefer to wait for the official release. Now, supposedly, the leaked version was just a demo, but then again, the people who've listened to that demo have also told me that the official version is actually barely different, so I don't know what the situation there is, but the leak is not considered official canon, so I'm just going to skip over that personally. As for the actual song itself, okay, I'm not personally very moved by it, but I certainly do think it's of the same high standard that Australia is used to sending, musically, and it's performed by an artist that we know that we can trust, so by default, it can't be all that bad. I will say at this point though, Australia, for the love of all things millennial, if the hashtag was your idea, please drop it. For the moment, it has disappeared from the videos on Eurovision.tv, so it may just have been a typo, or you may have had a change of heart. I hope it's the latter, but not only is that not how hashtags work, if that was your intention, but it made my mother cringe, and she's 3 times my age. Still, with that being laid out on the metaphorical table, let's crack on and see what we can uncover about the song that you might like. Well, before anything else, the song is performed by an artist who we know to be both capable live and familiar with Eurovision protocol. Not just the whole act of getting on stage and singing and dancing, but also everything backstage. You know, the get yourself ready, get onto the stage, here are the timings, here's the choreography. She's familiar with all of that, so I think we can readily expect a competent and efficient performance at the contest. Even putting that aside, the fact that she's been chosen to represent her country twice or 1.5 times is proof she's an excellent ambassador who is genuinely excited for the contest as a whole, much less to be participating in it. And that reflects very well on her, and by extension on her delegation and her country. It immediately makes her more likeable, which is very important, because it plays into her role within the song of being this relatable, familiar, almost big sister-ish kind of role model who's spreading uplifting, reassuring positivity about the world. She's there to be someone that you can turn to personally when you're feeling down, in the hopes that her cheery outlook will bring you back up again. Which is a nice change of pace for a song of this kind. Usually, songs about the world being terrible are just the world is terrible, what are you gonna do? Whereas with this, it's the world is terrible, but we'll survive, which is encouraging. As for the live delivery, well, the music video does make a big deal of the cube that she's dancing in, or a relatively big deal anyway, so chances are they'll bring that, or something reminiscent of it, into the Eurovision stage performance, which will give the song a distinct, memorable visual identity. I know I go on about that a lot, but it is a crucial aspect of a lot of successful songs. Jamala had the giant golden tree. We remember Sergei Lazarev because of the what I call You Are the Only Wonder Wall. You know, Mons had the projections. I'm not saying it's necessary to succeed, because of course, look at Salvador Sobral, but still, if you have a visual identifier, people are more likely to remember you. And in fact, Australia has worked with a cube before. It worked really well for them in 2016, can't forget about that. As it is this year already, Azerbaijan has the imagery of the moon, Finland has the stripes, Switzerland has the pyramids, Denmark has the whole Viking situation, and now Australia has the cube. And in a year like this, being memorable will pay off big time, I think. On an instrumental level, meanwhile, though most of the song remains within its comfort zone relatively, there is an attention-grabbing percussive breakdown towards the end, in a very similar vein to what happens in the UK song, actually. In both cases, it serves to disrupt the flow of the song without making it sound jarring, with a loud, impressive, and commanding thing to make sure you're paying attention. Even on the off chance that you've lost interest, it's at least going to make you sort of turn your head and look around like, oh, this song's happening. And that factor, making sure that people are paying attention to it right at the end, I think that will definitely help sell it, because of course, the final minute of a Eurovision song is usually where a lot of the magic happens. So if you're getting people to pay attention to you at that crucial 11th hour, and they remember the best part of your song, or what is usually the best part of the song, that should pay off for you in theory. And that's all well and good, but let's go on to the other hand now. You're not obligated to like everything this song does, as is true of any song. So let's take a look at some examples of why you might not be a fan of Australia's song this year. And because it's Australia, does not cut it in these reviews. Australia is allowed to take part, they are a valid member of the contest just like everyone else. So, the first thing that stuck out to me on my first listening is that the structure of the song is kind of the opposite of Belgium's. That is to say, when the first refrain happened, I sort of didn't realise it was the refrain. I thought it was a bridge building up to a much bigger, more bombastic chorus. So when that finished and the instrumentation died down for the next verse to begin, I felt a little bit shortchanged, to be frank. It felt like it was building up to something really impressive that was about to blow me away, and no, that was the chorus. Now, on subsequent iterations within the song, you're more used to it, you know to expect it, so it's not really an issue, but on first listenings, which is what this will be for most viewers in the semi-finals, and again in the final if it qualifies, on those first listens, it is a tiny bit of a letdown in my experience. Also, in the grand scheme of things, I don't expect very many people to care about this point because it is a lyric gripe and a lot of people don't mind lyrical things in Eurovision, but I do find the line "stronger than fire" to be a little bit on the weak side compared to the relatively graceful wording of the rest of the song. The rest of the song is actually really well written, but then that makes this one line stand out a bit as, that was an interesting word choice. It almost feels like they ran out of ideas for how to finish that line and so just stuck in a cliche metaphor just to, just so it wouldn't sound incomplete. And sure, it works, it just, to my ears, which I know I'm not really representative of the public at this point because I've been doing these reviews for, what, 4 or 5 years? But it feels distractingly base, at least to me, in comparison to the rest of the song. But that's undoubtedly just going to be a me thing. What isn't quite so much of a me thing, though, is that painfully incongruous hashtag in the title. Now, as I said, they have since removed it from the video on Eurovision.tv, so that makes me wonder, was it actually a typo? Did they not mean to put that in there, and so people got the wrong impression? Like, it could just easily have been like a random @ symbol, or like a dollar sign or something, and it just so happened to accidentally be a hashtag. Or were they trying to include a hashtag in the title and then removed it when it got a bit of backlash? Well, I actually wrote most of this review before they took the hashtag out, so let's run with the assumption that they did it on purpose, and if it was accidental, then just completely ignore this section. Either way, I'm sure it won't bother a lot of people, but personally, if it is deliberate, I feel like it's a bit of a really patronising marketing decision. Like, I get the impression that if it was put there on purpose, it will have been the idea of some 40-something-year-old marketing executive who wanted to give the song extra appeal to the younger generation, which is usually how these things work when people try to force hashtags. That doesn't work on a number of levels. For one, because of how hashtags work, the way they included it in the song title, the only thing that was actually tagged is the word "we." So it's just hashtag "we got love." And that's another reason why I think it might have been accidental, but then again, the song ends with hashtag "we got love, so I don't know. Secondly, I mentioned this last year, but trying to force a hashtag in a song is kind of cringeworthy in and of itself. And that sort of feeds into the third point, it doesn't need to be there. If people want to post on social media about this song, then hashtag "we got love" is going to emerge naturally. It just, when you put it in the music video, even if nothing else, it just looks like, "How are you doing, fellow kids?" And it doesn't really work, but this is a personal gripe, and I'm sure people are in the comments complaining already that I need to just shut up and enjoy the song, and you're entirely right. I don't think that sticking a hashtag in any song title will win it any extra fans who won't go to like the song otherwise, but, as I said, I'd imagine that me complaining about it probably annoys more people than the people who would be annoyed by the hashtag being there in the first place, so let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume it was a mistake, but still, that just says that someone messed up in the PR department. Either way, let's just move on and forget this conversation ever happened. And so now we come to the ratings out of 10. Yep, there they are. And this is another song where, honestly, I'm actually disappointed in my own reactions to it. The song itself is fine, I'm just disappointed with how I responded to it. For my personal score, I will give it a 6, but let the records show that it's a very high 6. Like, it's 6.7, 6.8. It's nearly a 7 overall. much like Croatia, it's one of those songs where I appreciate the theory of it, absolutely, but in practice it just feels like there's something that's missing that would otherwise grab my attention. There's something that isn't there that would otherwise complete the circuit for me, so to speak. So I don't feel as engaged as I could. Still, it is a pleasant listen, presented by a good singer with a great personality delivering a positive and uplifting message, and I do enjoy that. If I were listening to this year's compilation CD, which I will do, I do that every year, and this song were to come on, I wouldn't skip past it. But I don't think I'd go out my way to listen to it in isolation either. Still, for its technical summary, I'll turn all of that on its head, literally, and give it a 9. It is a more than adequate representative of Australia's commitment to sending quality, chart-worthy songs to Eurovision. It sounds radio-friendly, it's got a message typical of both chart music and Eurovision songs, it's something that we want to hear at the moment, that the world sucks and we need positivity, and it's got all the production values and then some that one would expect from a country as dedicated to Eurovision as Australia. Musically, it's in the right key for its message, and the melodies within the song don't sound generic or overly familiar. It's not as if we've heard it before. It doesn't remind us of other songs, or at least not directly in terms of melodies anyway. So it's a solid composition. There's just that thought that there's something not there that holds it back from being as gripping as it could be, but even with that in mind, it's still a damn fine offering from Australia. They're keeping up their Eurovision appearances as we expect of them, so well done. With that being established, it should come as no surprise that I label this as a neutral step for Australia's overall strategy. Though they are, predictably enough, yet another country who's not making any changes that I can comment on because they're already in a good place. I can't say that they have made good changes because they haven't made changes at all. So far, through this method, they've never placed outside the top 10 in the final, so they have no need to make any changes. That being said, I do recall there being whispers of SBS planning a national final for this year, which sort of didn't happen. I wonder if they'll do that next year. I mean, could you imagine a national final full of songs of Australia's usual quality, like the stuff they've been sending for the past 4 years? Imagine a national final full of that, with Australia's budget no less. That would be a positive step for Australia. And from a starting point as strong as this, I can't even begin to think how that would end up working out for them, but I'd imagine probably very well. But back in the present for the moment, is Jessica going to make it to the final? I would say probably. After all, it is a competitive level, professional sounding Australian grade Eurovision entry that the juries will approve of and the broader public will find something to enjoy in it, I'm sure. The only issue is that semi-final 2 is a rather difficult one in terms of competition so far. And the fandom is trying to put it about that this is the year of all the traditionally strong countries sending weaker songs, which this is all their words, not mine. Well, if this counts as a weak song, then I think of the countries that that generalisation applies to, this would be among the more likely to qualify anyway, and rightly so. Australia understands Eurovision better than quite a few countries who have been in the contest for much longer, my own country included, and this continues to demonstrate that. So, jolly well done, Australia. For now, I have been and will continue to be Tessellating Hexagons, and to Jessica and the whole Australian team, and Australia as a whole, because welcome to Eurovision, except you've been here for a while, I wish you the very best of luck, and we'll see how people take to the song in May.